You walk into your house after a long day. Your shoulders finally drop, and then someone you love asks you the smallest question. Hey, did you take the trash out? And something in you explodes. Not because of the trash. You hear yourself say something sharp, something colder than you meant. And in that half second after the words leave your mouth, you already regret them. You watch the hurt flicker across their face, and you think, why did I just do that? They didn't deserve that. Here's the strange part. That same day, a stranger cut you off in traffic. A coworker gave you a passive-aggressive email. A cashier was short with you, and you handled all of it. You stayed calm. You even smiled. But the person who loves you the most, the one who'd drop everything to help you, gets the worst version of you. If you've ever wondered what's wrong with you for doing this, nothing is wrong with you. This is one of the most common, most misunderstood patterns in human relationships. And once you understand why it happens, it stops feeling like a character flaw and starts feeling like something you can actually work with. Let's talk about why we snap at the people closest to us and never at strangers. Think about your day for a second. Really picture it. You wake up already behind schedule. You answer messages you don't want to answer. You sit in a meeting where you bite your tongue. You absorb a comment from your boss that stung, but you just nodded and said, sure, no problem. You held the door for someone who didn't say thank you, and you let it go. You stood in a slow-moving line and said nothing. All day, you're managing yourself, filtering yourself, being the version of you that the world expects. Polite, composed, professional, easy to deal with. And every one of those moments takes something out of you. Psychologists call this emotional labor, the effort it takes to manage your feelings so they don't leak out in front of people who wouldn't handle them well, or who might judge you, or who you simply can't afford to be honest with. You do this all day with everyone who isn't safe. Then you get home, and home is where the filter finally comes off. Here's the psychological truth underneath all of this. You don't snap at people because they're the problem. You snap at them because they're the place where it's safe to stop pretending. Psychologists sometimes call this the safety trap. The closer someone is to you, the more your nervous system treats them as a shock absorber. Not because you think less of them, because somewhere underneath the surface, you trust them the most. You know they'll still be there after the outburst. You know the relationship can survive your bad moment. A stranger might not give you that grace. A boss might fire you for it. A new friend might walk away. But a partner, a parent, a sibling, a close friend, your nervous system has quietly filed them under safe enough to fall apart in front of. It sounds almost sweet when you put it that way. And in a strange, backward sense, it is a kind of trust. But it doesn't feel sweet to the person on the receiving end. It feels like being punished for being loved. Real quick, before we go on, if that explanation just made something click for you, that's exactly what this channel is for. Hit subscribe if you want more of these. Now, let's see what this actually looks like in real life. Think of the parent who is endlessly patient with a screaming toddler in public, holding it together with a calm voice and a soft smile, and then snaps at their spouse over something as small as the dishwasher being loaded wrong. It's not about the dishwasher. It's the 20th small thing that day, and the spouse is simply the first person who felt safe enough to absorb it. Or think of the employee who spends 8 hours swallowing frustration from an unreasonable manager, saying understood through gritted teeth, and then comes home and snaps at their partner for asking what's for dinner. The manager was never actually the safe target. The partner was. Or the friend who listens patiently while someone vents for an hour, nodding, validating, holding space, and then later snaps at their own mother over something trivial, like being asked what time they're coming home. Notice the pattern. It's never really about the dishwasher, the dinner, or the time. Those are just the final drop in a cup that's been filling all day. Psychologists call this displacement, redirecting an emotional reaction from the person who caused it towards someone who didn't, simply because that second person is safer or more available to release it on. You weren't angry at them. You were angry, and they were there. But here's where it goes a layer deeper,
because displacement alone doesn't fully explain why it hurts so much on both sides. When you snap at someone close to you, there's usually a second thing underneath the surface. Not just leftover stress, but an unspoken need that isn't being met. Maybe what you actually needed was for someone to ask, "How was your day?" before asking you to do something. Maybe you needed 5 minutes of silence before being handed another task. Maybe you needed to feel like your exhaustion was seen before it was added to.
And when that need goes unspoken, because we're often not even aware of it ourselves, it doesn't just disappear. It turns into irritability, into a short fuse, into snapping over something that on its own is completely reasonable. This is why the people closest to us often feel confused and hurt in equal measure. They didn't do anything wrong. The trash did need to be taken out. The question was fair, but they walked into the blast radius of something that had nothing to do with them. And underneath the irritation, if you're honest with yourself, there's often something quieter and more vulnerable. Something closer to, "I'm overwhelmed, and I don't know how to say that without sounding weak," or "I needed comfort, and I got a request instead." Snapping is rarely about anger on its own. It's usually exhaustion wearing anger's clothes.
Here's what most people get wrong about this pattern, including the people it happens to. We tend to think snapping at loved ones means we don't respect them, or that the relationship is somehow the problem. So people either spiral into guilt, "I'm a bad partner, a bad parent, a bad friend," or they get defensive. "Well, they shouldn't have asked me that when I was clearly stressed." Both of those responses miss what's actually happening.
The truth is almost the opposite of what it feels like in the moment. Snapping at someone close to you isn't usually a sign of how little they matter. It's often a sign of how much emotional weight you've been carrying without them. You held it together for everyone who felt unsafe, and the first person who felt safe got the release valve. That doesn't make it okay. It's still worth understanding and still worth changing, but it's not evidence that you're incapable of love or patience. It's evidence that you've been running on empty for longer than anyone around you realized, including you.
So what actually helps here? Not as a fix, but as a shift. It starts with something small. Noticing the moment before the snap, that tight feeling in your chest when you walk through the door, the tension in your jaw before you even open your mouth. That's the signal, not the words that come after it. If you can catch that half second, even just to say, "Hey, I've had a really long day. I need a minute." You're not suppressing the feeling. You're just giving it somewhere honest to go, instead of an unfair one.
And on the other side, if you're the person who's been snapped at, it can help to remember that in most cases, you weren't the cause. You were just standing closest when the day finally caught up. That doesn't erase the hurt, but it can soften it. Because now you understand what actually happened, instead of quietly wondering what you did wrong. And maybe that's the real realization hiding underneath all of this. The people who get the sharpest edge of us are so often the people who love us enough to still be standing there afterward. Not because they deserve less kindness, but because somewhere inside us, we've come to believe their love is sturdy enough to survive our worst moments. That belief is a kind of compliment, even when it doesn't feel like one. But love being sturdy enough to survive our bad days isn't the same as love being meant to absorb them. The people closest to us shouldn't have to be our shock absorbers. They should get to be the people we're gentlest with, not because they're fragile, but because they're precious. So the next time you feel that familiar tightness rising before you snap at someone you love, pause for just a second. Ask yourself what you're really carrying. Chances are, it was never about them at all. It was about everything you didn't get to put down all day, and they just happened to be the safest place to finally set it.